that. Let me just do my posts really quick. Boop. There. Now I need to log out. Okay. I won't actually be able to tell if you're coming through until I check on the Twitch app, but I'm sure it's fine. There we go. Did the Discord post. Let's quit out of that. Okay. All right, what's going on, everybody? It's Mobius. Why? Time of streaming this is Friday, April 3rd. I don't have another multiplayer game going on tonight, although a good sign, I have been able to get into party chat with somebody else. So what's actually going to be going on, this is going to be a much more mechanical, educational kind of stream, similar to last week, but it's not just going to be me. I've also got another Stellaris Console veteran with me, Razor X06.
How's it going, guys?
How you doing tonight, man?
Doing good. Looking forward to educating the masses.
Yeah. So, those of you watching this on YouTube at a future time, if you'd like to see more Stellaris Console Edition content, please subscribe to the channel. Check the links in the description below for my Twitch channel, which I stream this off of, my Twitter feed, which is a great way to keep in touch with me, and I'll post important announcements, such as if I have to cancel or postpone a stream. And there is, of course, my Discord channel, which people like myself and Razor and a lot of my viewers are a part of. You can join that. We're at about 100 members now. Mostly people who watch my Stellaris Console Edition stuff, so you can ask them questions, set up multiplayer games, discuss the game. It's a nice channel. It's pretty quiet for the most part, but everybody in there, nobody's really had any bickering going on yet, which is nice, because I don't like having to mediate that kind of stuff. I'll just probably ban people before I do anything else. It'd be like, I'm tired of your shit, get out of here.
No, that's a good group.
So I brought... Yeah. And most of them are people that have joined me on stream, too. It's a lot easier to get people on the multiplayer streams if they're in the Discord channel. So if you want to join me in multiplayer sometime in the future, that's the best way to be a part of it. Elderly Bosch 123. How's it going, buddy? Okay, so the reason why I brought Razor here tonight is because I wanted to talk with him about some stuff, particularly things that I've talked about in the last week. So Razor knows that last week I streamed some ideas of ship designs when I was by myself. And then earlier this week, once I was done working on them over the course of the weekend, I released my own personal tier lists onto my YouTube channel. If you haven't checked those out, I highly recommend doing so. Not sure how long they're going to be useful for still before we get update 2.2.
Yeah, that sucks, man. I feel for you in a way because you put all this work in, and I worry that in a few weeks they're going to be like, "Hey, here's 2.2." It's gonna, but either way, they still stand. They're still good.
Yep, I'll just get to do it all over again, and I know that Stefan, who helped me out with the tier list videos themselves, said he's willing to help me out with similar stuff for 2.2, and if you're up to it as well, we could very much do a similar stream like this. Where we don't do much playing, but we just talk about stuff in game, like how to be as effective as you can in with the changes that have come with 2.2. Obviously, that'll be down the road, probably sometime, within a few weeks after the update comes out, whenever that is. So, whenever that goes on. So right now, we're going to start off by going over some ship design. And I've just loaded the save file that I use for these particular mechanics videos and these deep dive kind of videos and streams and whatnot. So Razor's actually a pretty what's the term I'm looking for? Competent Stellaris console player.
I like to cut through a lot of the bullshit, man. I like to make sure that I can convey accurate information about certain things. Everyone has questions about this game because it's ridiculously intricate. It's very complicated. There's a lot of intertwining mechanics, but yeah, I feel like if there's a few questions in chat, or if you just want general meta stuff, we can try and break this down. Scourge, Unbidden, Fallen, Awakened, general stuff.
Exactly.
We'll get through it.
Yeah. and that's originally why I contacted Razor off of Reddit about a month ago, I think it was by now, or close to it, where I wanted to kind of work with him on in either like a stream like this, or possibly come up with something for something that I could upload directly to a video onto YouTube. Because him and I largely feel the same way about getting out accurate and correct information to people. Because I can't fucking stand it, pardon my French, when people just, for lack of a better term, make shit up and then tell one person and then tell somebody that. Because the way I see it is, well, now they've told that person that who has the wrong information, and then they're going to go off for the next week until they have another question. They're going to tell their 20 friends that they're playing with a piece of wrong information. Those 20 friends, if they have other friends, are going to tell their people of some wrong information too, and it's just going to snowball, and then all these people are going to have the wrong information. I've hated that indefinitely, and it really started to bug the crap out of me when I was still playing like World of Tanks console, for example. I couldn't stand that crap, so I try to avoid it. Elderly Bosch, can't wait for 2.2 updates. Yes, same with a lot of people. Big C Burger, good evening, buddy. Nice to see you. The Crusading Brownie, I'm just wondering how the new DLC introduction will be handled, like an Ultimate Edition or something like of the like, and pricing. I would fully expect that there's going to be a similar kind of season pass sort of thing. It might not be called Deluxe Edition, because you can't call Stellaris Console Deluxe Edition and then, hey, we've got Deluxe Edition. Which gives you all of 2020's DLC.
I think it's like they've mentioned before that they are, if they're going to do they have hinted at bundles. They have said that it'll be like a second season pass. Whatever you've got at the moment won't apply.
Exactly. So I will be following along in chat. I'm just not going to be watching who jumps in and jumps out if you don't say something there. So if you pop in, just say hi, and we'll say hi back. But yeah, what Razor said is a kind of season pass, second year season pass kind of thing is what they did mention previously. So that can be not necessarily expected, but hoped for. Okay, so with all that out of the way, I'm right here. I'm here in a ship designer, and we're just going to go through some different ship designs. Actually, I should get my notes on Fallen Empires, because I wrote them. I printed them out, and I used them for last week, because I don't have any actual ship designs for dealing with Fallen Empires in this save file. But the designs we're going to go over are pretty much strictly like late game ship designs, stuff that you can use for either general purpose or for tailoring against a specific enemy, like an endgame crisis or a fallen / awakened empire. So yeah. Do you want to go through like the ship sizes first, like corvettes, then destroyers, then cruisers, or do you want to go through like here's all the designs for dealing with the Scourge, and then go through all those, and then here's all the designs for against the Unbidden?
Well, I mean, effectively, we're just reiterating what your videos have said, which are really good. You guys should check them out if you haven't already. We are looking at if we're talking about fallen empires, if we're talking about awakened empires, then first off you need to know what you're facing. Second off, you need to understand what does well against them. And we can work that any way you want. We can work from the small ships up, big ships down. I'm easy, man. However you want to do it.
Well, we can go small ships up. It's just from the way they're organized in the ship designer. I think that'll be easier. So I think you and I both universally agree that the best general purpose corvette is your usual neutron torpedo corvette, where you've got a neutron torpedo launcher and a plasma cannon, and then you can fit on one piece of shields with 4 reactors. You need 2 medium and 2 small reactors to fit that, and then you can have whatever you want in the auxiliary slot, because you'll have enough power for afterburners, you'll have enough power for a shield capacitor, you'll have enough power for an enigmatic encoder or decoder, whatever you have. So I think we both definitely agree on that.
You're dealing with the smaller ships, especially the corvettes. You know, if you play the game quite well, if you've picked up a few bonuses along the way. As you mentioned, if you're lucky enough to get the enigmatic fortress to be in your game, and you're even more lucky to get the 1 in 4 or a little bit less than that chance to get the or whichever one it is, the one that boosts evasion, your corvettes and even probably your destroyers are going to have really high evasion. So they aren't going to get destroyed too fast. They are there for meat shield. They are there to be sacrificed because they can be replaced so easily. But their evasion will keep them alive for a lot longer. All fallen empires, doesn't matter which one you're facing, has a metric. Are we allowed to swear? Maybe.
Yeah, go for it.
Have a metric fuck ton of shields, right? So they have more hull than shields, but they have a lot of shields. So getting through that is a challenge. It's gonna, you're gonna be fighting them, and you're gonna be going, oh my god, they're not losing any ships, and I'm losing ships. They got a lot. It's gonna take a little while for you to tick over and get to that point where you start hitting their hull. These torpedoes will help you. They are a decent counter as a general counter. It doesn't mean that you can't use torpedoes. It's just that the Fallen and the Awakened, they have a lot of strike craft. They have a lot of fighters, and their escort class, the smaller ships, most of them have point defense, and they will shoot down a lot of that. So unless you're an absolute mad lad and you're jumping straight on top of fallen empires, you're going to want to go with these decent neutron torpedoes, which can't be targeted by point defense and do a massive amount of damage to shields. So you want them as a meat shield. You want them to live as long as possible. You want them to do a lot of damage, and the torpedoes are a good way to do that.
Exactly, and you're right about them all having a lot of shields. The only real exception is the xenophobic battle cruisers. They have 4 slots of armor and 2 slots of shields, but every Fallen or Awakened Empire uses shield capacitors on their ships, so their shields regen pretty quickly too. And I can't remember which one it is. Does one of them have more shields than armor? I don't think so. Most of them are pretty even.
They're mostly pretty balanced. I mean, you have to look through it.
It's largely those shield capacitors that'll make them a pretty tough nut to crack sometimes, even on their smaller ships.
Should we have a quick talk about shield capacitors? Because I mean, I do love shields, like generally.
Yeah, sure.
I'd like to just raise a small point about shield capacitors on the whole. Shields are great. They look cool when they get hit, and they are an extra barrier of protection from damage from ships. The thing is, the capacitor, as well as being quite a costly auxiliary component, it takes energy, it takes all kinds of other stuff, minerals to fit, but it does a unique thing. It allows, without this, you cannot regen your shields in combat. It's something again that you can see Mobius selecting it. Doesn't fucking tell you that. Like as many things in this game don't tell you. With 1, 2, doesn't matter, 1 or 2, it will allow your shields to regenerate in battle. And you can imagine how important that can be, especially if using Mobius's technique for having a lot of different small shields to stack that bonus when it comes to shield regen. If you have 2 shield capacitors, you boost it even further. Really important. And then without that, your shields will not regen in combat. They will just go down like any other sort of hit point thing.
That's actually really good to know. I wasn't 100% aware of that, to be totally honest. I always suspected that they just automatically did it, and the shield capacitor still increases the rate that they regen.
It's a difficult thing to notice, because when you're outside of combat, I mean, once the combat's done, the combat's dramatic, and you're like, oh my fucking gosh, oh, what am I losing? And you're completely focused on ship count, whether you're winning. You're not really focused on whether the individual ships' shields are slowly ticking back up. And of course, when the battle's over, the shields will do what they do, which is regen. However, the shield capacitors, whilst you're in combat, will regenerate your shields, which is massive in some cases. Not every case, but in some cases, especially with enemies. Like I remember getting gifted very early on from a fallen empire, a battle cruiser, which is a ridiculously low chance. It's like 5 or 10% chance that you get given a battle cruiser by them if your opinion's high. And I was like, oh, cool! I got this massive ship. It's great. It's like over 1,000 fleet power. And I was in early game. I was like, oh, I'm going to take out everything. And I was watching the combat, and I was like, fuck, they are not. I was fighting some space pirates or whatever, and I was like, they aren't even doing enough damage to make its shields go down. It's literally regenning their damage, and I was like, shit. And then I extrapolate that, and I was like, well, fuck, my battleships are going to have them every so often.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a good piece to know. So if you want a really balanced kind of cruiser or battle cruiser loadout where both your shields and your hull regenerate at the same time, you can give one slot to a shield capacitor and one slot to a regenerative hull tissue.
Yeah.
If you're kind of evening the scales, that way your shields are regenning in combat and your hull is regenning a little bit too. Hey, Mr. Freak, you should probably go to sleep, shouldn't you? I'm just kidding. Good to see you, buddy. So yeah, and that was the other thing too that I pointed out was shields. Like the basic deflectors, the tier 1 deflectors. If you have like one medium deflector, I'm just going to clear these slots really quick. Show obsolete. So like one small deflector, or sorry, 2 small deflectors are equivalent to a single medium deflector in terms of total shield hit points and their shield regeneration rate. However, as soon as you get to the improved deflectors, smaller shields, 2 slots of smaller shields will give you more shield regen than a single medium slot. So
I can provide you with
your ships.
With a really exemplary example of that, if you like.
Yep.
You know, me and Mobius talk quite a lot. You remember when I was telling you that I managed to take out a Wraith?
Yes. Yeah,
it was a while back, and it was actually like a massive problem, a real inconvenience for my particular run. But I had a problem with a Wraith. It was roaming through my territory. It's a Leviathan. It's kind of rare because normally it kills itself by just smacking itself against the fallen empire. But it was too early for me, and I completely forgot. You discover it by scanning pulsar systems, and I forgot about how the time, because it gives you a little warning when you do it. It says, hey, you've got 40 years and I'm going to come around and bite you in the ass. And I completely forgot. And then I like really close to it, I was like, oh my god, wait a second, that actually happened. And I panicked, and I was like, oh my god. And I didn't have any fleet. I had no fleet because I was trying the one planet challenge. And I was like, oh shit, like this is going to ruin my entire run. And I was really enjoying it. And I was like, what am I going to do? And I did what I do, which is go on the Reddit, and I literally just sort of like frantically searched for information, figured out a few things. And I don't know if I had Fortress technology. I must have had something close to, maybe I had Fortresses. And I was ready for it. And I plonked a few down, and I filled the fortress with shields, right? And I made sure, like Mobius has recommended, that every single small slot had a shield emitter in it, and that regeneration, you could literally see it against a Leviathan attacking it. It took it a really long time to get past the shields. Not only to get past the shields, but then trying to get past the hull with the armor and the shields at the same time.
Wow.
I had to use 2 fortresses and a tiny bit of fleet, but the combined it was a 1.3k fortress, 2 of them, and a 2.7k fleet that took out a Leviathan. Not the strongest Leviathan, but a Leviathan. Normally you need like 30k to be happy,
Yeah.
So it really does work.
Something to keep in mind for the future, definitely. And despite my negative bias towards military stations, they definitely do have their use. Many people can attest to that. So for crisis events, me personally, I actually don't bother with corvettes, but there's definitely some builds that I suggested for the Scourge and for the Unbidden. Now, for the Scourge, I actually like the small cutting lasers strictly because it's 100% damage directly to their hull points.
Yeah, this was an interesting one. I enjoyed your I've looked at this myself, and I was happy that somebody else came to like a similar conclusion. I feel like it's really fucking close. Like between the efficiency of mining lasers taking out all of the armor, and the damage output and tracking of small plasma, it's an interesting dichotomy. I don't know the math. I'm not really that good at math, but good at logic, and I'm not quite sure where it is. I feel like it's really close, and it's possible maybe that mining lasers push out ahead.
Just barely. The one advantage they do have is that they require less power, so you can. I just checked actually. I don't know if you have the Twitch thing open, but you can slap on a bigger piece of armor with mining lasers.
Oh yeah.
On the Corvette chassis, you have to, with mining lasers, you can do a small and a medium reactor. And then if you're going plasma, you have to use 2 medium reactors, and then there's 3 small armor slots. So you'll actually get them a bit more damage reduction if you go with the mining lasers as well.
I mean, this is
sometime.
Yeah, I mean, this is a point that I want to talk to you about, like your choice of using armor and the hull repairer. Especially on the smaller ships, but I need to pop off to the water closet, little boy's room. I'll be right back, and Mobius will keep giving you more ideas about decent builds. See you guys in a sec.
Okay. I'd largely say that due to previous playthroughs, I'm actually going to wait till Razor gets back, and then hopefully we can breeze through some of these a little more quickly. But I'm definitely going to say that the idea that I had playing as the Blorg, where I went with shield penetration, thoroughly disappointed with it. So I would honestly say that if I was going to change, I would change this particular design where instead of a regular Devastator torpedo, do a neutron torpedo, and then still keep a phased disruptor on the Corvette chassis to deal with Unbidden, because then your Corvettes essentially have 2 anti-shield weapons to help take out the shields on the Unbidden ships, and then your cruisers and battleships with the bigger weapons can start knocking down on their hull hit points, because the Unbidden do not self-repair. Those of you who watched my Blorg streams or the videos, you may remember that. If you damage the hull points of Unbidden ships, they're not going to repair them. So if you get more damage through to their hull, the better off you are, and I'd say you're far better off just slapping on as many anti-shield weapons on your Corvettes as possible, and then your cruisers, you could probably also do some neutron torpedoes and phase disruptors as well, or you could even do the artillery bow and artillery core, which will give you 2 more kinetic artillery, and then phase disruptors for the additional slots. That's my opinion on it. And then of course I should have been looking at the Awesome Sauce Corvette. I really wish that I had better technologies here, but unfortunately we're not going to get console commands. So being able to have all the God Sauce stuff to show you what I think would be nice, be the best Corvette setup. Yeah, it's not going to happen though, I don't think. So that I could actually put on like the enigmatic encoder on a Corvette class and just show you how high the evasion actually can get. It's pretty stellar. So I was just talking about how, due to how things went playing against the Unbidden with the Blorg on stream, and several people have seen those videos, I think it's best to go with the Corvette.
Yeah, that was dramatic, man. That was a dramatic. Yeah, it was a dramatic game, man. Like I thought you were going to get wiped out, and then you pulled it back.
Strictly because I redesigned my ships, because I thought that maybe shield penetration would work against the Unbidden, but no. So I went all kinetic artillery and just outranged.
It was nice to see that it literally was not maybe the best, but hey ho.
No. And I'm going to say that because of how things turned out honestly, you're probably better off with your corvettes. Just do a small phase disruptor and a neutron torpedo. You know, try and take out those shields as quickly as possible on the unbidden ships. Because any hull damage, I was just saying, any hull damage, it doesn't repair on their ships. So rip through their shields with your close range ships, and then your long range ships with the bigger guns can just knock them down.
Yeah, you were using
okay,
a really good. You were using a good strategy, man. You were using a sort of. Well, you were in the position where a guerrilla strategy was more or less the best that you had, and it was working really well. Yeah. It's a good testament to show players that even if you're overwhelmed, the crises, at least the unbidden, have, if they're working properly, a relatively finite amount of ships. You know, providing that you keep on them, you can repair and attack them again faster than they can. Well, they just can't repair the losses, as you say. So it's not bad.
Exactly. Building counters is super important. Yes, 100% agree, Mr. Freak. Took me way too long to figure that out. Stations are huge in 2.0 plus. That's also
I know nothing about that fucking. I'm so excited for the update.
I think it's largely referring to I think it's largely referring to all the defense stations that you can stack on a really big defensive starbase, which is called a citadel. You can have something like, what was it, 30 defense platforms or something ridiculous?
Oh shit, I didn't know the number was that high.
So it should be entertaining. Let's move on to destroyers. Personally, I don't even bother with destroyers unless an opponent that I'm going to fight against, I know that they are using either missiles and or strike craft or both, because I largely tailor my destroyers to specifically shoot those down. So one thing of flak and either one or two things of point defense, and they're a good defensive line for my battleships. If the enemy does not have those, I don't redesign destroyers because I simply don't build them, because I'd rather use those minerals to build more cruisers.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That's my opinion.
Well, I mean, the thing is, they are in a way they're an inferior ship. Like you mentioned their cost versus their output. They are there as a filler. I mean, they're stuck in a weird place. They don't have they don't have as much evasion as corvettes. They don't have the firepower of cruisers. They're literally there for the most utility role that you can give them, and you know, it's up to you. It depends. It really depends on the type of empire you've got. Like there's a holy grail that I am aiming for in my own games, where I'd love to get like a 90% destroyer. There are certain buffs that you can sort of converge and get 90% evasion destroyer. I'm trying to go.
I've only been able to do that once.
I know, man. Yeah, I mean, it would be so cool. I mean, they have different roles. I mean, they are primarily their design is flak or point defense. They're there to, you know, their computers. Unfortunately, we don't have the interesting computers that the future updates have. The corvettes, they swarm. The picket destroyers picket. They patrol a line. Most of the time, depending on the weapon range, it's quite close to the battleships. The cruisers will, apparently, according to their description, it's supposed to be a balance, but most of the time they are up in the face of whatever you're fighting, and the battleships are firing from far away. But the thing is, you have a medium slot, right? And on the front, you have a large slot. So you can put a large weapon. I mean, sometimes I will just exclusively fit my destroyers with kinetic artillery and be like, right, these ships are kind of worthless / hard to hit. They can augment my kinetic artillery. Screw it, you know. And I go full on assault because I know that they have a tendency to hang back. But you know, if I'm lacking in point defense and I want to focus all my cruisers and my battleships on damage, I'll give them point defense and flak. You know, so it's those are my two binaries when it comes to destroyers, really.
Makes sense. I would like to point out, Mr. Freak, if you're still watching, this really irritates the crap out of me, how the Guardian point defense is like the left side cannon on the front, and then the plasma cannon is the right side and the front. If you could please change it where the point defense is actually like that single one that's in the front and in the middle of the ship, that would be great, because this bugs the crap out of me.
I mean, you could move the module. You could like make it where it is. Could you not? I know what you mean. I know,
Um,
I know you think that the slot should be at the front of the ship, as per the geometric shape of the ship versus the slot orientation. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you could move it. I'm just saying. Just...
I wish you could. That'd be great, but I don't think you can right now.
switch. I mean, switch the slots. Switch them around. You not?
Nope, not that I know
No,
of.
you can't. Oh, okay. I'm talking shit. You can't. You can't do it. Don't worry. Yeah. Stellaris, what are you doing? You're destroying the anally retentive among us. Just help them out.
Paradox, please. So I had, in line with what you were saying about having destroyers, they're hanging back so you can throw a large weapon on them. That was kind of my idea for doing a destroyer setup. Is you have the artillery bow with a large plasma. Sorry, this is for against the Scourge. You have the artillery bow with a large plasma cannon, which will, if it hits the smaller ships, great. It does a lot of damage. If it hits the bigger ships, it's more than likely it will, because of their low evasion, and it'll do quite a big bit of damage. And then the rear is just two things of point defense, which really helps shoot down the Scourge, incoming Scourge missiles. Helps protect your battleships big time. This allows you to free up more slots on your battleships from either flak or point defense, and you can put more guns on your battleships. That is if you build destroyers. I largely don't against the Crisis events, but that's just me. And then the rest, however much power you need, and then as many armor slots as you can with a regenerating hull tissue, and that actually seems to work just fine. And then a similar story with the Unbidden class destroyer, since the Unbidden doesn't have missiles or point defense, just a medium disruptor on the back, because that's the biggest weapon you could put there, and then another kinetic artillery on the front, just like you said. Doesn't matter where it is, still functions the proper way. I agree 100%, but the OCD in me wants it to look cool. I want it to look as cool as it possibly can.
Gooseman, what are you saying? Like, Gooseman. We know that. Buddy, we know it doesn't matter where it is. But I don't know if you enjoy spaceships at all, but symmetry is a thing.
It has to be symmetrical. That's the one thing that bugged me about a very old game called Homeworld, is that the Kushan ships,
Homeworld,
a lot of the fighters were like off center. You have their scout where like the center is their guns, and then the cockpit's on the right sticking out way further, and then the left has their sensors, which is like a third the length of the entire ship, and it just looks weird, and it always throws me off, because it's like it's off center. It wouldn't be aerodynamic if it flew in air in the atmosphere, but this is in space, so I shouldn't complain about it, and it's a game. They still do the thing that they were meant to do. But still, in their own respect, they look cool because those were designed to look that way. But in this particular instance, that just bugs the crap out of me. Let's move on to some cruisers. I don't really have too much of a preference for cruiser designs, aside from as many guns as possible. So I do the broadside bow, broadside core, broadside stern. That gives you 6 medium weapons. It is like the shields and armor. It should matter which slot it is in. Yeah, that'd be kind of neat. Anyways, 6 medium guns.
I think Gooseman wants he wants the shields on the very outside of the. He wants them left and right, and then he wants the armor, and then he wants the energy, the power plant. He wants a real.
Like right in the middle.
He wants some onions. He wants some ogre level onions. He wants to Shrek this shit out. Yeah. Right. I had a thing to say. A quick thing, Mobius. About. I mean, cruisers. They are the arguably like the most diverse ship. You can do a lot with them. But a point that you skipped over earlier. Armor and hull regeneration. The thing with hull regeneration is that. As nice as that is, it doesn't, unlike the shield stuff that I was talking about earlier, it really doesn't apply very quickly. The bonus is very small. It's, I think, what is it? It's like 2%.
2%. Yeah, that's it.
2% is very.
You pretty much have to stack it. Yeah, you pretty much have to stack it with other stuff like the engineer trait for your admiral. You need living metal, and And then Devouring Swarms get a 0.5% bonus with the Civic.
Yeah, it stacks up, but like in combat versus shields, it's nothing. It's a very small amount. What it does help you with is if you have a one or two very strong fleets that you have to keep out and about. Maybe you pair it with a fortress, for example. I think one of the fortress bonuses has that shield regen effect as well in its aura as well. Yeah, there's definitely a fortress that has an aura that bonuses the other things, the other attributes of the hull regen that you were mentioning. So you can park it
both
out in space, and it will compound on it. But the thing is, in combat, that's not gonna. It's really not going to save you. Maybe it will reach. It's such a small amount in comparison to the kind of incoming damage. So it's not something that I personally prioritize. But if you want to keep a very large fleet alive, especially when you're engaging something like the Scourge, where you're engaging more than one fleet over and over and over again, it might be a good idea. But I would also say, continuing on from that, armor on the smaller ships, I feel like the gain is so small versus the amount of hit points you could gain with something like shields is potentially not worth it. It really depends on the bonuses in the fleet, but the Scourge will do more damage to shields. I don't know the math on it, but my own inkling is that if you can have 300 shields instead of having an extra 15% armor, I feel like that would probably save the Corvette more. That's just something I wanted to mention and get out of the way quickly, because I was looking at the designs earlier. That's it.
Yeah, no, I actually totally agree. Definitely with the regenerative hull tissue part, especially. Sorry, I just popped my knee. That was loud.
Wow, that's your fucking knee. Holy shit.
Yeah, that's my kneecap. That's my
You
kneecap,
okay?
dude.
I'm
fine. Yeah, I do that
anymore because he's
I've broken my leg. I need to go to the hospital. Good luck in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic. But yeah, you're right. Where the regenerative hull tissue, it doesn't apply as much in combat as it does between battling certain fleets. And if you want to keep your fleet out there, like if you just cannot bring them back because you need to stay on an offensive, or you're going to be repeatedly fighting different fleets, that's where the regenerative hull tissue really comes into play. Of course, you could completely do away with it if you have an admiral that has the engineer trait, or you have the living metal strategic resource, or both is actually preferable. Your ships can self-repair. Yeah, your ships can then self-repair on their own pretty decently. And then armor on the smaller ships, it's pretty much entirely about efficiency. Because to put on more shields, like I'll just try psi shields because they require the most power. Let's see. If I did shields and a shield capacitor, I could still do 3 small psi shields plus a shield capacitor. And even against the Scourge, that's another 400.
That's a lot, man, right?
Shield points. Yeah, and they'll be regenerating a lot faster than Hull would.
The thing is, with the Scourge,
only downside.
Yeah, go on.
I was going to say the only downside is because they have more innate bonus shield damage than actual armor penetration.
Yeah.
Those shields will be getting repeatedly dropped, but it might make the ship live longer than if it had more armor. Perhaps that'll be something that we definitely have to test in the future.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see how that's going to pan out. I'm curious to try and give it a quick test and see how it's going to work. But the Scourge do bonus. I mean, their missiles do bonus damage to shields. Their strike craft bypass shields entirely. They just completely bypass the strike craft. They completely, and the acid blast apparently is categorized as kinetic, and it does. God, I can't even remember right now, but it's categorized as kinetic. I'll have to check whether that does any bonus.
I think it's only
shield,
plus 33% shield damage.
Maybe. I mean, I know for definite the shields really hurt. Sorry, the missiles really hurt the shields, and that the strike craft completely bypasses. So those are two components, at least 66% of the damage, probably more, that your shields don't matter, but you have to balance that against your point defense, taking out the things that ignore your shields. One, especially if you're engaging at range, maybe the strike craft can't even get to you. And two, the missiles, if you have enough point defense, which you're going to want to try and have more so than any other scenario, it will try and take out a lot of those missiles. So it is beneficial. I'll have to check the exact, I don't think anyone really knows the exact damage of that acid blast and how it affects shields, but it's an outlier.
I'm pretty sure it's just a flat 33% shield damage bonus if I'm recalling correctly, and it still has like a 15% armor ignore. It's very similar to like a medium railgun, pretty much.
Yeah, I'm scouring.
I don't know if it's because
on my laptop.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because the acid blasts are the same size, or if just because, like you said, they're considered kinetic. Now, cruisers against the Prothoran, I've actually got it set up where they're a lot more defensive. They have a flak on the stern. You could even change it to where you have like 3 things of flak with a broadside bow and broadside stern, just to, be super lowsy. Actually, I gotta try this sometime where I have a hanger core and then broadside bow and broadside stern. Every medium slot, which is all 3 of them, have flak, and then the hanger core has 2 things of point defense with a fighter wing. To shoot down all the Prothoran strike craft and missiles.
I like fighters. I mean, fighters are very, very. No, they're not very effective, but they are. They're almost a novel, effective tool to use against them. The fact that they can move around, the fact that they have range, definitely more range than point defense. Maybe not so much than flak, but it's multiple. Points of damage coming. How many flights of fighters do you get? Like 8 individual craft, I think. 8 individual craft dealing whatever damage. It
says units 8. So for each slot of fighters, it's 8 actual fighters is what it says. Same with bombers.
So it's 8 individual points of damage coming out.
Yeah.
Range is like 10 or 20 or something.
8, also 8.
Yeah, 10.
Bombers, same range, 8. Bombers have more hull points but lower evasion, and they do more average damage. Fighters are they have better accuracy, better tracking, less hull points but better evasion, and they will actually target enemy strike craft first, and then they will target torpedoes and missiles, and then they'll target ships. Correct?
Yeah, that's the order. I mean, bombers will literally only attack what they can, and that is ships.
Ships. Yeah. But
which is why I wanted to
I
mention another thing. I remember to mention to you, Mobius. I remember to mention that the Scourge have no point defense.
That's true.
You have mentioned that a few times in some of your videos. I just wanted to correct that. None. 0. You can use bombers against them if you want.
So I've actually got that set up on like, I usually put that on my battleship setup because I either go with a hanger core so I can slap on 4 flak artillery, especially if I'm going almost strictly battleships or mostly battleships. But you can also do a carrier core where you've got the 2 small slots, 2 slots of point defense, and then a broadside stern, so they have 2 medium slots for 2 flak. So you have 2 point defense, 2 flak, and then the two strike craft, you could do double bomber wings on your battleships. And once those bombers actually get over their retardation, where they fly away from the battle for a little bit first, and they actually go after ships, they will shred ships.
Yeah, I mean,
there's so many of them.
I'm not one to depend on the bullshit of Stellaris and the lack of targeting capability of the strike craft, but I tell you what's not a bad idea, and something that I learned myself within the last few months is that having the back part. If you're a person who is at the point where they're just churning out battleships. You're fighting the Scourge. You're like, oh God, we're gonna get screwed. You're churning out the battleships. Switching the back part of that battleship to have two flak, that's not that bad. If you make sure your spinal mount has tachyons or whatever lances, and you either pick plasma or you pick kinetic artillery for the middle. The two flak on the back of that battleship is more than enough to take care of but most missiles and all strike craft that get sent against you. I shared a picture. I was really hoping that the Scourge would turn up in my rival's territory. I was doing a slaver playthrough, a spiritualist slaver playthrough, and I was like, please, just turn up in my... these guys have been plaguing me for the entire game. They had the ridiculous audacity to have the same fucking colour as me, so I couldn't tell where my borders ended and theirs began, and that was just so infuriating.
That's the worst.
It was the worst. Like, fuck off. Like, nothing I could do about it. But that's where they were. So I'd share the odd screenshot or something cool where it made it look like I had more Empire than I did, and I didn't really, but it was still impressive. Anyway, so I was like, please land there. They landed like, I don't know how many systems do they get when they land, like 5, something like 5 or 4. They landed like three of the about that. So like 3 of the systems were in the rivals' territory. 2 of the systems were in mine, right? Where do you believe that they have been butting their heads against for the last 20 years? Whose territory do you think they went for? Like
yours.
Mine, heavily protected with massive fleets and fortresses and everything under the sun, or the one that is literally wide open for food? Anyway, no, but it wasn't that. I learned a lot about their expansion mechanics from that. But it was kind of irritating. But I automatically threw whatever fleet I could straight up there. It had corvettes, it had a lot of corvettes, it had a lot of shields. It wasn't the best ideal setup, but it survived an encounter with them, quite a significant one, because I sent them up there to head off the Vanguard, and the whatever the other thing is called, the rest of them spawned
Starbirds.
Straight. Yeah, the Starbroods, they spawned straight on top of the battle, and it was crazy, and I was kind of worried that shit, I might lose here. There's that moment where you're like, should I retreat?
Uh-oh.
Like should I retreat?
Yeah.
Like, I think I can. I've played this game a lot. I think I'll be alright. It was that kind of moment, and fortunately, I had enough that I didn't need to retreat. But I definitely took a lot of losses. I lost one of my avatars, my psionic avatars. I had 2. And I really fucked off that I lost one. But
doesn't that suck when that happens?
Oh, it sucks so hard, especially if you've got 2 Mobius, because you've got fucking 2, and now you're back to being the pleb. But yeah, no, so I dealt with them, but I learned that there's a screenshot. I'll show you another time, maybe your audience if they're in a different place. But I took out like 3,000 strike craft / missiles. 3,000, dude. And then I looked at like my losses. No missiles, and I had torpedoes on these things because they were I literally moved them. I had just finished killing a Fallen, so I just moved them straight up. So to wrap up there, they don't have any point defense.
So you could even go with like Devastator torpedoes, which, if I recall,
I wouldn't
they ignore.
Against the Scourge, that's probably not the worst idea for corvettes, but corvettes themselves are a bad idea, maybe against the Scourge,
Yeah. They have 50% armor ignore, and like they have pretty decent average damage. It's their actual damage whenever a Devastator torpedo hits is actually quite high.
Yes.
And they'll ignore 50% armor, so a lot of that will go straight to the hull. So just for funsies, if you wanted, you could do this. Where is it? That's the compensator. There's the torpedoes. So dealing with the Scourge, Throw in a bunch of Devastator torpedoes and plasma and see what
Yeah,
happens.
if that's what, if you have the numbers and that's all you've got, what are you going to do? You know,
Yeah, I
what are
mean,
you
yeah,
going to
like
do?
I said, any ship design will work if you have enough ships, right? So there's that.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, Prothoran cruisers. I've actually got it here where there was the 2 medium plasma cannons, 2 things of point defense, a thing of flak, and then either a bomber or a fighter wing. And then the extra-dimensional invaders, which starts off being the unbidden, but otherwise later on. 2 kinetic artillery, because that's all that can fit with the artillery bow and artillery core. And then the other slots are just 2 medium phase disruptors, because those are the biggest guns you can put on besides the kinetic artillery. It only gets the 2 large slots, right? So
Yeah.
that's pretty much all I stuck with. So yeah, we kind of talked about battleship designs. Why did I call this progressive? Oh yeah, because it's the upgraded one. A well-rounded battleship design: 2 medium Stormfire autocannons, 2 kinetic artillery, a Giga cannon, and 2 flak artillery.
So there are some people
Okay.
that swear by Stormfires, man. It's weird. I mean, they have a very high DPS. That's the thing. They have
They do.
terrible other stats.
Yeah,
Like, they have
their
no
accuracy and
armor
tracking
or anything else.
ain't so great. Yeah, their accuracy and tracking ain't so great, especially on the large ones.
They look
the big
cool.
thing, the big turnoff.
Sound
for me,
cool.
Yeah, they do. The big turnoff for me is that Stormfires have limited range. Like a large Stormfire has 60 on range. That's about the same as like a medium, or sorry, it's a little bit more than a medium laser, but that's a medium plasma cannon, medium phase disruptor. You know, a medium Gauss cannon outranges a large Stormfire autocannon. That's my only gripe about Stormfires. But I did want to do a game where I do only autocannons. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I'm going to do something really, really stupid here. But like a broadside bow. Oops, not that. A broadside bow battleship, and then a broadside core battleship, and a broadside stern battleship, and it's nothing but Stormfire autocannons. Just for fun. I like corvettes. They take shots first while their capital ships inflict damage to the opposing fleet. Yes, then that's largely what they're for. Is your corvettes are going to die, but they're the cheapest and fastest to replace.
Yeah, and they're good screens because one, they have very high evasion, so anything that's large that's firing at them is going to have a hard time. And yeah, they're disposable, and they don't. For their size, they really do put out a lot of DPS. I mean, if you're wanting to like inflate your size as an empire, use corvettes with torpedoes because it will make it seem like you are strong when maybe you're not against other corvettes. I don't know, but it's something you can use to make the AI go, oh, hold on a second, this guy looks like he's got a lot of fleet power, but I'm not intelligent enough to realize that will do fuck all. So yeah.
So fun fact, I did that particular setup, and it's telling me here that the average damage is 96.55 points of damage per day. Anytime I switch out an auto...
That's pretty fucking high.
That's a lot.
That's pretty high.
That's a lot, yeah. Anytime I switch out the guns to anything else, like I'm putting it all Gauss cannons, which also have a really high rate of fire, but the DPS still drops down to 87.43.
That's the thing.
Plasma was actually way lower.
That's the thing. The auto ship designer, it doesn't take into consideration. It's weird. It takes into consideration like certain things, but not others, right? So it will take into consideration the DPS of something. That is a very important thing that it considers. But it also will consider the percentages, but not if the percentages are negligible, right? So if the percentage, it will balance them against the DPS, right? So if that's why I've said this before. That's why you see a lot of auto builds chucking in bombers, because bombers, one, have a very high DPS, but they also have 100% shield bypass, 50% armor penetration, which is a massive stat to the AI. But we both know that fucking strike craft are going to fly off to nowhere. It can't grasp the nuances of the game. So if you want to play well and you want to do decent counters, it's going to come a point in time where you cannot rely on the auto designer anymore, and you have to start thinking about your own designs, which is what Mobius's videos is for, and guess why we're talking.
You know what? Just for fun, I would like to try and do a playthrough where I use only mining lasers. So the biggest ship I can build is a cruiser with broadside bow, stern, and core, and it's just 6 mining lasers.
Are you going to be a mega? Are you going to be a megacorp as well?
I don't know about that.
You're going to mine everything, everywhere, all the time.
Let's see, carrier class ship. Why did I call this the carrier class? A carrier class.
We've got a question in chat.
People would. Any guesses on when the console updates will come? No.
Mobius, when is our salvation coming? Tell the masses, they want to know.
No.
No, you know. You have the special inside knowledge. He's withholding it from us. He knows, but he doesn't want to tell us. He doesn't know. No one knows.
Okay.
This is the thing. Everyone's getting impatient, and I understand it. You understand it. Like, it's been a while. It has been. I mean, recently I was looking at their Twitter because there's been a little bit of Twitter activity. Maybe your audience wants to jump on and have a look, but they've recently been like, God, they got a bit antsy. They got a little bit antsy, and they were like, hey, by the way, guys, I want you to know. What did they say? Something along the lines of, PC had to wait 23 months from 1.7 to 1.2, and I was like, oh, hold on a second. I mean, it's not really a fair comparison. But they're basically saying like, we know. I think they know. I think they know how antsy we are. But what people fail to realize is that we are less significant. I don't know if any of your audience plays Fortnite. I played Fortnite before Fortnite had multiplayer. I bought the game, I loved it, and I enjoyed it. And then all of a sudden, a little jokey kind of, we like Battle Royale mode turned up. And out of nowhere, it blew up. And all of the money and hopes that I had about this being a fun single-player experience with a lot of interesting stats got completely relegated. No one gave a And for example, right? Because of a glitch that happened when I bought the game, where my code didn't work even though I bought the game, I contacted Microsoft and they gave me the most expensive version of the game. The most expensive version of the game comes with certain really unique founder weapons, and they've been okay, they've been alright. But the thing is, the game's moved on, it's iterated, and a lot of the weapons have become very, very strong. Recently, 3 or 2 years on, they upgraded the weapons to be like really strong, and it's just like, okay, like it's such a weird scenario. You have to understand that you are not their primary concern, like, and as much as it's shit, it is shit. Let's not deny it is shit. They have an audience on PC. The game is much larger on PC. It's doing better on PC. And that's what you have to consider. Like, we are, in a way...
They also just had federations.
They had federations, massive release, straight over the virus. Everyone's playing it. But you have to understand that we are not as important. They have made no serious commitments to us. They have just said, we will update as the money comes in. And people are like, oh, they're screwing us over. They don't care. And you think, well, you need to look back at the history, right? They are doing a lot. They have been doing a lot. And the fact that they are committing to going from 1.7 to 2.2 is a really fantastic sign. It means that we have the actual possibility to get these cool updates. So it's don't
federations in 2021 for all we know.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Like, don't
updating all the way to 2.6. Yeah. The big thing, though, that has always kind of bugged me that I don't think people realize is that completely overhauling every basic aspect of the game, from planet management to the economy to the combat, all of those things changed in that massive jump. The economy changed, and the economy and planet management changed in 2.2. Combat, fleet management, territory expansion, border control, all that stuff changed in 2.0. And then there was a bunch of other stuff that also changed in like 2.0 and 2.1, namely to things like less major things, but more like, buffs and nerfs and stuff to, for example, megastructures. Like that's going to change. You're not going to be able to build a bajillion megastructures anymore.
That's the thing. People don't realize what's changed in this game.
Yeah.
It's a lot because we're ignorant of the progress of PC.
Yeah, exactly. And I've always felt that the reason why that they're more concerned about actually getting the update out and done is because that is the larger amount of work that needs to be done. That lays down the foundation for everything else, because everything else is largely adding new stuff in. It's not overhauling stuff that already exists where they have to completely change the UI. They're just adding stuff in. They're adding in the Titan ships. They're adding in the Colossus ships. They're adding in an anomaly tracker. They're adding in additional civics and a different way of playing as a megacorp and all that stuff. No, it's fine, dude. I'm not saying you're impatient. I'll take what I get. Fun game right now. Yes, I agree. That's why me and Razor still play.
Yeah, I mean,
right now we still think the game is very fun.
If you're new, man.
I feel worse for people who are new.
There was a dude. He was like, there's a dude. He was like, I'm 4 weeks in, and I really wish that you'd update it to PC. And I was like, dude, you haven't played the game, man. Like, you need to get in there, dude. You don't realize that there's quite a fair bit. You know, I mean, Utopia, man, is massive. You and I have been playing for months.
Utopia,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, Utopia alone has been quite huge, and I felt that the game had significant improvements just from Leviathans with the trader enclaves and the Leviathans. It really added more stuff to do in the galaxy, but Utopia has hands down. And this is agreed on PC too. Is right now Utopia is the best expansion that was introduced on PC.
Yeah, completely. And that's true.
In a lot of people's minds, Federations is the best update they've had since Utopia, and that says something. That's like 2.5 years of updates and DLC since Utopia, and then Federations comes out, and it's like, yeah, this is actually the best one we've had since Utopia, just with all the stuff that it brought. So laying the foundation for being able to bring all that stuff to console takes time. So that's why. And
you've seen,
I know a lot of.
and most of us have seen the new screenshots, and you have to understand this is a completely new UI. This is a completely new expansion process. It's not something that can just be pulled out of a hat. It needs a bit of testing because it's not the same medium. I genuinely do appreciate the time they're taking, and we should too. I agree that it's frustrating we don't know our time. They could project the time, but they don't want to screw us around. I feel lately that I feel like they are chomping at the bit to give us something, and I feel like maybe somewhat soon, maybe we'll get something. There's no guarantees, but it seems to, for me personally, to feel like it's in the air.
Yeah. And once we do get news, then everybody's going to go ape shit, and I'm excited. I'm excited for that. It's going to be kind of cool. Don't get me wrong. I do like the way the state of the game right now, and I do joke about it where it's like, I'm going to lose my precious planet tiles, but you know what?
I do,
nice.
yeah.
It'll be nice to get this.
I feel like it's
nice
such a weird juxtaposition, isn't it? It's like we're excited for what is we're gonna feel more unified with our PC brethren, if we can call them that. We're going to feel like we're more on par, got more attention, but at the same time, I mean, a lot of people hate it, but I like the border systems. I like increasing my population to screw someone else over, and all the other little nuances that come with 1.7. I mean, there is a mechanical in PC where you can almost pick. You can't go back too far, but you can pick what mode you're on. I doubt we'll get that, but
yeah,
pipe dream for me personally. Right, I'll be right back. Mobius, keep doing what you're doing, mate.
Hold tight. One sec. I think we can both agree that a good battleship design against the Prothoran is you have your Tachyon Lance, and then you have either a broadside or artillery core with plasma cannons, and then a broadside stern with 2 flak artillery, and then you're good. As much armor as you can.
Yeah. I mean, you know how I feel about shields, but yeah, I mean, I agree. Right, Tachyon Lance, hands down. Doesn't matter what the fuck you're doing. I've heard people talk about. I've heard people talk about focused arc emitters. No, like I understand what you're getting at, but no. Like when you have a weapon that does, almost 50-60% more damage and has 90% armor reduction.
And will never do 1 point of damage.
It will never do. I mean, yeah, but the average will fix itself wherever the fuck it fixes itself. My average is double, like, go away, like, even with the 10% reduction. So the best spinal mount is always going to be lances against the Scourge. I mean, there's a slight range difference, but the damage difference is insane. So it's not really worth talking about.
True.
As far as the
and
weapons go, why are you holding me here, man? I need to pee. I'll talk to you about the Scourge battleships in a second. I'll be right back.
Go pee. I was gonna mention about the unbidden, or I should say extra-dimensional invaders battleship, but I think the how the events went with the Blorg stream from about a week ago when we actually defeated the unbidden. A large part of it was hit and run strategies, but we saw significantly more success once we switched our battleships to exactly this loadout: mega cannon or giga cannon, and then 4 slots of kinetic artillery. We did massive amounts of damage to the unbidden before they could even get close enough, and I'm quite positive that Razor will agree. So we don't need to. We don't really need to touch on this particular subject, but I think we'll move on because we did want to cover a bunch of subjects this evening while I had Razor here, and we're going to move on and talk about Ascension perks, and namely how we feel about the Ascension perks. If we have time, we'll also talk about traits and Empire civics, but we are definitely taking up a lot more time than I had liked. So I'm actually going to be ending, when I edit, I'm going to be ending this video, so it's only about an hour, and then the start of the next video will be in a little bit. So those of you in the future who watch this on YouTube, thank you very much for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more Stellaris Console Edition content. Check out the links in the description. Dingle my dongle so you are notified when I upload additional stuff. And yeah, once Razor gets back, we'll continue on with the stream. And hopefully those of you on YouTube come back and watch some more videos. So the next video will be us discussing Ascension perks and mostly discussing how I rank them in the tier list in particular. So we'll get to that in just a second.